Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the Youth and Workforce Development Workshop focused on fostering your future workforce. Today's workshop is hosted by the United States Department of Agriculture's Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement in partnership with the National Institute for Food and Agriculture's Regional Rural Development Center. USDA's Office of Partnerships and Public Engagement develops and maintains partnerships focused on solutions to challenges facing rural and underserved communities, and connects those communities to the education, tools, and resources available through USDA programs and initiatives. NIFA's Regional Rural Development Centers are a trusted source of economic and community development data, decision, tools, education, and guidance for our nation's rural communities. Before we dive into today's discussion, let's go over a few housekeeping items. Today's workshop will be recorded, and a copy of the recording will be available to registered participants via the participant information webpage. We invite and encourage active participation through the chat box. We will be actively monitoring the chat box to address any questions and comments you may have for today's speakers. Additionally, we will be utilizing the chat box to help facilitate today's activities. As part of USDA's Community Prosperity Initiative, today's workshop is a part of a two-part series that will focus on providing youth-serving workforce development organizations and other youth-serving nonprofit organizations with the tools and resources aimed at identifying resources and key partners to enhance opportunities, build, sustain, and grow your workforce opportunities, distinguish between technical, life, soft, and hard skills, and the benefits of each. Also, increasing the awareness of how to match your youth talents with available opportunities in your community. Just a quick overview of today's planned activities. As you can see, we have a pretty packed agenda that will set the stage for session 2 on Thursday. We know that there is a lot of content and materials and hope you will stick with us throughout today's discussion. And we also know sitting in front of your screen for 3 hours at a time can be a bit rough, so we do have a break built in. Today's session will largely focus on the bridge building activity, helping participants to think about the state of youth within their community and what steps the community can take to reach the idealized state of youth, with a specific emphasis on youth workforce development. Each of today's activities and discussions will build upon one another and culminate with session two's focus on coalition building, partnership development, and using and gathering data. These 3 areas are critically important in fostering an idealized state of youth in your community. Before we jump into the meat of today's workshop, I would like to take a moment to introduce and welcome our training team that has been working for the last 6 to 8 months to pull together a meaningful, engaging workshop for you all. First off, I'll introduce myself. My name is Tori Powell, and I currently serve as the National Coordinator for Agricultural Youth Programs. I'm joined by our Agricultural Youth Programs Program Assistant, Sadie Lackey. She's a recent graduate from the University of Georgia, where she studied agricultural communications. Deb Barrett, who is currently a senior extension educator with nearly 25 years of service at Michigan State University. Dr. Bo Below is a professor of rural and regional development with the Department of Agriculture and Economics at Purdue University. And Carol Latuski, who serves as a community support specialist in USDA's Rural Development Innovation Center with 20 years of service with USDA Rural Development. Lastly, I would like to remind our participants about the preview resources and materials available at our workshop participation page. If you haven't already reviewed these materials, please take a second and check out the webpage. In addition to finding handouts and worksheets for today's discussion, you'll find helpful materials including working with Zoom, understanding your local demographics, and understanding the workforce planning process. This is also where you'll find homework materials for session 2, which will be Thursday, August 6th, 2020. With that, we will turn it over to Deb, who will walk us through our first section of today's workshop.
All right. So we are hoping that you took our recommendation to look at some videos and to do some preview work for this somewhat seriously, because we want to use this bridge building activity very predominantly today as we try to help you look at your communities and how you can take this and expand on it after the next couple of sessions with us and implement it in your own rural areas. So as a reminder, as Tori said, the majority of this workshop is centered on this bridge building activity that we want to do with you. You should have previewed this, and there were a couple of other pieces that I think would be very handy for you to have with you. One would be if any of you made a list or used the worksheet and identified some of your local community assets, or what we may also refer to as your community capitals. That should be handy with you. And then we also asked you to think about your local area and what are some of the demographics around rural youth workforce development. You know, what is sort of the current picture? What are the great things that are happening? And what are some of the challenges if we took a snapshot today and start to build something new or enhanced from there? So we are going to take you through this process. I'm going to focus on the now, and then Bo is going to work on the wow, and most of our session on Thursday will focus on how would each of us make all this happen. Do we have any questions so far that we need to pause for? All right.
No questions in the chat.
Thank you. While I'm moving slides and presenting, one of you need to chime in and just let me know if I do ask for just a touch base there. Thank you, Carol. All right. So this whole concept of bridge building, if we all think about what a bridge looks like, it's an expansion. It links two things together, right? So today we want to focus on those two ends. We start with the beginning and the end, and then we'll build the middle as we finish out the week. I want to reiterate what the preview video included that I hope some of you had a chance to look at. And that's that there are three very important elements to remember as a part of thinking about building a bridge in your community to, in this case, foster rural youth workforce development. So the first one is that whoever is working with you on this initiative or this idea that you want to try to build on, you all need to be in agreement to what the goal is. Have the same common ending point, everybody headed in the same direction. So that is very important, and that's one of the things that the video emphasizes. The second thing would be know where both ends will be. As I said, we're going to start with the now, and we're going to work on the wow, the big woohoo at the end. That could be your enhanced or encouraged or fostered opportunities at the end. And by the end of today's session, we should have both of our ends in place. And then the third thing that the video emphasized was that you really do need to start this with, don't start in the middle with how you want to do stuff, but really get your anchors set on either end, and then you work kind of backwards and fill in the middle. Shortly, after I give you a little bit more information, the way we're going to do this today is that we are going to send you into breakout rooms. And our tech crew that's on is going to hit those magical buttons through Zoom, and we're going to shift into breakout rooms where each of us will appear with you, and we're going to help you facilitate some conversation with other participants. And we're going to talk about what your current picture is and try to help you grasp this concept of how you would do this with others. And then we will all come back together like we are now in one space, and we will share for the benefit. I know since the majority of you are extension colleagues, we all learn from one another. We don't always just start from scratch or start over. So of course we want to learn from other states, other communities, and have some dialogue back and forth. So I want to help set the stage before we put you into breakouts. We're going to talk about the current state of youth. And for us as a team presenting with you today, we kind of brainstormed on the pieces that we wanted to bring to the forefront and some things for you to think about. We want you to think about and sort of refer to or utilize your current employment data. We would like you to think about the assets within your community. You know, who are the movers and shakers? Who are the individuals and organizations in your local communities that could be to the table or be in Zoom land with you as we move forward, that could help make a difference around youth workforce development? We need to acknowledge and think a little bit about the skills gaps that we have nowadays with employers and employees. And of course, we are going to mention the impacts of COVID-19, because in addition to everything that it has impacted across our nation and our world, of course, it has also affected youth workforce development. So when we think about rural workforce development, I want you to think about what is the current scene in each of your states. And I want to give you just a few acknowledgments and ideas about that sort of bigger picture. And then each of you are going to provide the, you know, what is your state perspective? What is your community perspective? So let's think about this. Youth and young people, and every one of us are continuing to work our way through COVID-19 and all of its short and long-term effects and impacts each and every day. It has caused delays in education. It has even perhaps lengthened or made even more difficult that sort of that learning gap piece that usually only focuses during summertime when kids are out of school or during breaks, but it certainly has done some things to extend that. And I am, amongst others, one of those individuals that have lived with connectivity and bandwidth issues that affect how we've been able to access the virtual world. And then I feel it's also important to acknowledge that we have individuals of all ages and all places and cultures where we are all grieving and mourning the loss and challenges with friends and family members, and that whole social concept that we are used to with face-to-face interactions, that we really are in a different place right at the moment. So that acknowledged, in some ways we want to maybe set COVID aside or think about what was going on when everything was hopefully going better, and you know, what was happening in your local communities. I have a few statistics that I would like to share with you that I took from the Alliance for Excellence Education. These are some of the stats that I use every day when I'm working in workforce development. So, not knowing what each of your communities have in this regard, I thought that these might be of interest to most of us. Today's students and young people that are, you know, moving onward from K-12 education need strong literacy skills to be able to be successful in today's knowledge-based economy. Yet nationally, only 36% of 8th graders in our nation read at a proficient level. Nationally, the high school graduation rate continues to hover around only 80%. So we still have about 20% of our young people that are not completing graduation either on time or at all. 26% of high school graduates are college ready, meaning that they've got the knowledge base, the developmental base, they're ready to go, whether they're doing that virtually or face-to-face, that they have those assets and survival skills and can be effective in a college or university or trade school type environment and successfully facilitate learning and achieving their goals. 60% of today's jobs require post-secondary education or training. That does not equate to an associate, a bachelor's, or an advanced degree for everyone. That might be some of those specialty certifications, career and technical ed certifications, or other types of training certifications that can help us all be successful. But with 60% of the jobs requiring something post-secondary, only 39%, so almost about 40% of 25 to 34-year-olds nationally have an associate degree or higher. So those are some things for us to think about. So Carol, here, I'm giving you a heads up. We're going to fill the chat. Of the states that are with us today, and I think that we were targeted to have about 12 or so different states involved here today. Who has the highest high school graduation rate? Fill up our chat. Is anyone doing beyond 80%? Any takers on that, Carol?
Yes, David said 95% in his county, in Butte, in Idaho.
In Idaho, well done. Can anyone beat that? Okay, are you seeing anything else, Carol?
No, I'm not.
All right. Okay, so I have another question for you and would encourage you to put your responses again into the chat. Another reminder with chats is to, in this case, remember to reply to everyone versus replying to an individual person so that we can all see your responses. All right, so if we think about pre-COVID-19 times, let's go back to before March. What states currently have young people or new people entering the workforce with their own businesses? Which of the communities that are with us today maybe are inspiring young people to be entrepreneurs and help get things started and get things continuing to roll in local communities? Anything new there, Carol?
Yes, Karen Remy Torres, they have one who's a part of a mentor program before starting his business.
Wonderful. Anything else coming through there for the moment?
No, there's not.
Okay. All right. So hopefully things for you to think about as we continue with conversation here.
David sorry about that. David just entered. Do they also have one? And a very active young man that provides mentorship.
Wonderful. And there are some tricks to the trade to help foster younger entrepreneurs and keep them mentored on the right track, help them stay inspired and motivated, little differently than some of our more sustainable local businesses who have been around for a while. So that's great. Love to hear that we are inspiring young people on from coast to coast as we're all represented here today. Okay, I also, before we move into breakout rooms, I want to also acknowledge and mention the skills gap. For us as a team, we sort of view that skills gap as the differences between what current employers are looking for in employees versus how are applicant candidates or new employees arriving? Do they have the skills and attributes that our businesses and organizations need, or is there a gap? So in the Midwest, that I can speak more to, we highly advocate for individuals that know what teamwork means and that can be self-starters as well as work within a group, that can be decision makers and problem solvers, think creatively and innovative, be willing to take a risk, and also come with some knowledge in whatever subject matter it is that they're working in. But it is very common nowadays for employers to say that you can train someone with the hard skill knowledge that they need in a job if they come ready, willing, and able to work, are adaptable, know how to fit within a group or a team of people, and can communicate and do all those other things. So that's sort of the framework that we sort of want you to have in mind as we move forward here this afternoon. So with that, I'm going to give you a couple of instructions and reminders to those of us that are facilitating. And then here in a couple of minutes, the tech team is going to push those buttons and put us into breakouts. So I want you to think about your own local data. And you're going to have a chance to be in small groups and have conversation with other participants, whether you choose to share your data or you brainstorm about, oh, where should I go find this data and statistic? Do we have commonalities between us? What else do I have to find in my community if I want to take what I'm learning today and Thursday and implement this? You're going to have about 20 minutes to have conversation and build your own notes and lists or share with one another. And then we will come back together and we will share as a whole. So some of the questions that our facilitators might use or that we might think about as we're talking with you is, what are the current assets that you have in however you define your community? All right. Sometimes community is county. Sometimes community is a small rural town, village, or city. However you view that, you don't have to do things alone. We would definitely advocate for partnership and working together collaboratively. What are the good things that are going on? And at the same time, who's doing them? And what are some of the challenges to your community? And what is the reality of what your community is currently facing? If we all want to leave this week and enhance what is currently going on in rural youth workforce development, what's the reality of what we have to talk about and think about as we go through this bridge building activity? I hope you have some local data with you, or we're going to at least suggest some great websites and references to refer to help get you started. And then of course, what are you hearing? What are some of the local concerns around this issue? Because it could vary state to state, community to community. Do we have any questions before I ask the tech team to split us up? As we start to recap, I don't know how that worked for everybody else, but that time went by really fast. And I think that my group, we were maybe in mid-sentence. So for the group that I was working with, please, if I can help you as we continue through this or after this week, you make sure to look me up, and I would love to have conversations with you further, because I feel like we were just getting started. Okay, facilitators, how did we do? Did you have good conversation?
I had the best team. Had a great group.
Okay, all right. Tori, how did yours go?
I think it's interesting when you compare folks who represent specific communities and folks who represent extension with broad swaths of communities. I think the concerns and the way you look at concerns are going to be a little different. So, food insecurity might be an issue in one specific community, but it might not be the broader concern for the broader swath. So, just an interesting conversation, but definitely substantial.
All right, and who was our fourth facilitator? Sadie, did you do that or did someone else?
Yep, I did that. So we had a really interesting conversation too, and unfortunately we had the same issue. We got cut off. It felt like right when we got started. But we actually took an interesting look at challenges. We looked at maybe some reasons why students go to college and leave the community, but maybe not return, and how we can encourage youth to come back to communities and engage in rural and agriculture jobs back home. So.
Wonderful. All right. So hopefully your group took some notes there, because they might want to refer to that as we continue on. So we do have a few minutes. We're doing great on time. So I would like us to invite sort of each group to just report out, maybe share themes or share ideas that came out of, what is the now, what is currently happening. So just to help get us started, the majority of my group indicated that they had a variety of nonprofits available in their community to think about, if they're not already connected, reaching out and connecting with local nonprofits as an idea. With the group that was with Deb, would you like to add anything else?
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think you covered it well, Deb, but it was nice to hear other communities and maybe think about things from a different angle that I hadn't thought about. So that was really, I appreciated that part.
Wonderful. Okay. Also, my group, it was interesting, very much focused on agriculture. So we'll see where that goes as we continue on. So, Bo, either yourself or do any of your participants want to chime in here?
Well, I tried my best to give somebody else this responsibility, but they thought I would do a great job writing. So let me share with you the gist of what they each had some great stuff to talk about. My colleague Cheryl at New Mexico State University talked about what they've been really actively involved in, is at least initially, is career opportunities, particularly in the agricultural sector. But they rotate every year. It's a little bit different thematic area, and she'll correct me if I'm wrong. One could be careers in ag. The other one could be more leadership development. The third could be taking tours of different facilities where young people get exposed to the actual work environment and begin to understand what the career opportunities of it that might exist in these particular kinds of industries or companies. Then they look at soft skills, and then they're looking at how can we begin to build. They're wondering how can we build on the kinds of things we're doing already. David's at University of Idaho, and he talked about they've been doing job fairs, but those have been losing some traction. So what they did more recently is they actually took kids and did a tour of the businesses to meet with local businesses, to get an understanding about how these businesses are operated. Really give them a flavor for what these business enterprises are all about and what it takes to really run a business. And then he's very interested in trying to move them into a more of an entrepreneurship focus track in the future. Something they would have done had it not been, I think, for COVID-19. I think David said. Jessica, we had three people who are more land grant and extension. Jessica is with a nonprofit. She says they're doing a great job on public-private partnerships. The library's been very actively involved, working with teachers on STEM-related opportunities, career learning, and she's very involved in on-farm apprenticeships and entrepreneurship through the organization she belongs to. And she feels that extension has been such a critical role, but they really need to kind of step up their game in terms of being more cutting edge. And obviously, like anybody else, one big issue is funding. Then finally, Marcella said the key challenge for them is how do you help provide this kind of workforce training in an environment where more and more opportunities are going, more and more kids are going to remote learning, e-learning as opposed to face-to-face. So she's trying to figure out how do we help support teachers who are obviously a key audience for 4-H programs, and how do we better connect youth in the in-school learning of youth, what they learn in school, to real jobs in the community. Let me see if I mess anything up, guys. Did I miss anything? Feel free to correct me.
All right. Sadie, anything else you want to add to what you shared?
Yeah, definitely. We spent some time talking about the assets that we have in our communities, and we have a lot of extension folks in our group. So we spend a lot of time talking about just the role that extension plays in youth development and helping out develop their soft skills for the workforce. And we also talked about FFA being a organization for students that has a lot of impact on building their leadership skills and soft skills. So a lot of discussion about, the soft skill side of it here. And as well, like I said, just retaining students back to their local communities so that local communities can continue to invest in them while they're in the workforce.
Tori, are you ready to chime in with your group?
Yeah, a lot of very similar kind of themes running through this. I think it's hard for us difficult for us to separate the COVID conversation. And the impacts that and some of the challenges that COVID is highlighting, for example, food insecurity and the access to internet and access to Wi-Fi, so I think some of those things, internet safety for another one, how do you make sure that as you move everything online, that everybody's safe? If we were there physically, we'd have to worry about physical safety, but now it's a whole nother conversation, cybersecurity. I believe it was Nancy who brought it up, it might have been Karen, that brought up the positive component of, family engagement is on, young people being able to spend so much time with family is a positive, but it's also a struggle for some communities, especially Julio out of Chicago. If you're sharing a one-bedroom apartment across the family, having all 5 people in the living room trying to work and go to school can be a bit challenging. So very similar themes from, I think, what other folks have talked about. Karen did mention the nonprofits as an asset. So I think a very similar theme that we should probably capitalize on. There's some nonprofits out there doing great work, and how do we partner and collaborate with them, especially now. And universities. So, Ruby de la Garza has a university that's super close. So how do we work with the universities as an asset, as they're working with their students? So very similar themes as to, the rest of the conversation. So did I miss anything from my group?
Carol, do we have anything that's come into the chat that we need to share? I'm going to go back to the slide, and then I'm also going to invite, does anyone have any questions for the 4 or 5 of us working here with you right at the moment? We're going to take a break here shortly.
Hey, Deb, just for a quick reminder that the links to the participant information page with all the workshop materials and videos is in the chat box. I'll go ahead and repost those, but that way, if you want to take a look over those while we break, I'm going to add those.
All right. I think that we got everybody started on the right track and have them ready to come back and work with Bo. But first, we would like everybody to take, I think we're doing okay on time, a 10-minute stretch break, like mute us, move away from us, refill your beverage, get a snack, stretch, take a walk, and we will all start back up at 2:15. Does that sound right?
Okay, so let me go ahead and build on what Deb indicated. And as you know, when we talked about the bridge, she talked about you have a piece of land here and a piece of land several hundred yards away, and you're bridging. You got to connect, and that's why we've talked about the now. Now we got to connect to the wow, and that is, how do we get across that bridge? How do we look at what we feel is the best situation we can have for youth in terms of development? So we want to look at that. As you imagine, if you don't have a bridge which says how we're going to do it, then what's going to happen to your vehicle? You're going to fall right in the river. So what we're trying to do is build a bridge. So the way we get to the other side in terms of wow is to methodically build the kinds of strategies that could really help us get across that bridge and really gain success at the wow. So I'm going to talk about the idealized state of youth. Now, I'm not talking about, well, we want kids, we want kids who are listen to mom and dad, who have great career goals, who are just perfect children. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the idealized state of youth in terms of workforce development. How do we create a workforce environment for them to help them really be successful in adult life? So that's what we want to talk about. And what I'd like to do, if people are back, is if I had to ask you a question is, what would be, if you could think and be visionary and be really think outside the box, what would be the best thing you could think of that you'd like to see happen for young people in your community? Just put something down. It could be, hey, we want to have an entrepreneurship academy or an entrepreneurship site, whatever you want to say. Tell me what your ideal vision is with regard to youth development as it relates to work in your community. Go ahead and just jot something down in the chat box if you could, just to get the thinking flowing in terms of what you'd like. Again, tell me what you think would be the idealized youth development program if you could do that in your community, in your county, if you happen to be in a state position in your state. What would that be?
From Karen, a county-wide skills training center for youth that is supported by multiple school districts.
Okay.
Cheryl mentioned engaged, active, and productive.
All right.
David is youth being prepared for life, prepared for what they want to do, either college ready or workforce ready. And Nancy, youth have an opportunity to explore personal interests and how they may lead to career opportunities. And Alyssa has have all youth participate in a program.
Okay. Thank you. Those are really all great things to get us thinking about the wow. What would be the wow? What would make you just so darn excited to be able to see that kind of a program or initiative flowing in your community? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about that in a minute, and I want to share with you some things. For example, just as teasers to make you think about this when we get into the small group discussion. I'm a real big believer that data does matter. We did that in the now when Deb said, okay, what's the current state? What's the job situation in your community, and what jobs are there for young people? What opportunities are there for apprenticeship and mentorship programs? So what I want to talk about in the WOW, it's always good to look at data in terms of what jobs are growing or are projected to grow in your community in the future or county, which ones are likely to decline because of automation. In other words, we don't want to get kids involved in a particular career path only to find out that career path is likely to be a dead end because those jobs may very well become automated. What jobs are likely to be needed where they need young people? In other words, it's not when they get to working age, do we want to talk about a while including things for young people while they're learning the skill of becoming adult members of the workforce? What do employers say are the skills they're looking for in terms of hiring new workers? Do you want to try to get some sense from the workforce, from employers, what they think are the things that they really need that are not maybe necessarily there with people coming on board, particularly younger people? Will the ability to be in the information technology, they need to have those IT skills to be able to really make it in the workforce? Will there be, with COVID-19, we see a growth, a proliferation of remote work. Some of those may become permanent remote work activities. Is remote work an option? How do we help young people prepare for this type of work environment? And how do you create a work and development program for young people that takes them, I think some of you talked about, which aligns with their different career goals. How about kids who are college bound? We lose a lot of young, talented people to go to college and never to come back. So how do we bring them back? What kind of jobs would likely bring them back? If they're associate degrees, do we have really good jobs for young people who have associate degrees? If they're happen to be young people who don't have an interest in going to post-secondary education, but have a real interest in the vocational area, plumber, electrician, nurse assistant, whatever the case may be, what do we do to help them in terms of having those opportunities? So when you think about the WOW, think about the whole set of opportunities for young people at different stages in terms of their career goals. So when you do that, the thing you got to do then is talk about SMART goals. And I know you had a chance to read a video, to see a video on that. And let me kind of remind you what that is. When we get into the small group activity, I recommend don't worry too much about does it meet the SMART goals criteria. think about, just be creative, be brainstorm, think about things, big picture things that can be done in terms of young people with regard to youth development. Then begin, as you carve in, as you hone in on those that you think are vital to your community, now begin to think about, can we create this in a more smart way? And by smart, as you probably know, it means, is it specific? Because if it's not specific, you'll never know. You don't know what your target group is. Is it measurable? Because we're always looking at, how can you determine whether you've really been able to document impact? If you don't really know what you're measuring, you have no way of knowing whether you made any headway. Are you making progress, positive step-by-step progress? Is it attainable? And what we mean by that, we can be very grandiose, we can be brainstorming, and we can create a great wow, but there's no way. We don't have the resources, we don't have the capacity. Our community may be too small to make it happen. So is it attainable? So we really want to always try to indicate, is this something we can really get accomplished? Is it relevant? And by that we mean, is it really something our community needs, or are we thinking about some big city that may not necessarily, that we may not be a good fit? And also relevant in terms, we may not be the right entity. This group that we're bringing together may not be the right group, and we may want to connect to the groups that really have the more appropriate role to play, to get them to be able to partner with us, or at least be able to take that on in terms of workforce development. And finally, time frame. Is it, we got to know, I know you've been part of groups before and say, we got to get this done, but nobody ever gives us a deadline. Well, that means you might as well just throw that out the window, because nobody's ever going to know, hey, I got to get this done by September 1 of 2020. So it's got to be time frame, so that we know when is it going to start, and when do we expect that particular effort to be completed. So that's what we mean by SMART goals, really creating that kind of critical elements that really give us a really solid game plan. So I want to ask you now, does anybody have any questions? Deb, you have anything else you want to add, or Tori, or Kathy, or Carol? So you have that document. Again, Deb had that first part of that bridge that said, what's the how? Now you want to go to that third section that says the wow, and the middle section we'll eventually get next time into looking at how we're going to make it happen. Okay, so what I'd like to do now, and is really, we're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to have about 20 minutes or so to, we really want to give you a good amount of time to get this done, because this is really the vision you have, what you're aspiring to. And by the way, goals are things that these are things that stay in place for multiple years. If your goal is, I want to do this, we want to do this comprehensive program for young people, we want to get it done in 3 years, that's your goal, that stays pretty much intact. It's going to be when we talk about the how that we'll be talking about the step-by-step way to make that happen, okay? Does anybody have any questions, any clarification before we get into any of our coordinators of the group facilitators have any questions, to make sure we're all on the same page at this point? Any questions? So, Catherine, I think you're going to do your magic and put us all in different rooms. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully most of everybody's here. Let's go ahead, and if my colleagues in my group don't mind, we'll be very respectful. We'll take the last slot, okay? So we'll call on our colleagues first, and then we'll share some of our thoughts. So Deb, how about if we go with you and see if you could share how your group came up, or is it somebody from your group going to speak? Or
we really didn't talk about that part, so I'll start them off, and then again, I'll give them a chance to chime in if they want to. So in my group, I just coincidentally happened to have the new 4-H youth development staff people.
oh, wow.
That want to do more with career exploration and want to start or enhance 4-H clubs. So I've already told them that down the road, if they need to call upon me, that they are more than welcome to do that. One of them is, again, in Arizona on a reservation where agriculture is predominantly where the workforce is, and the area that they are interested in fostering the next generation of producers, at the same time of broadening the awareness and the opportunities of careers and jobs in agriculture and natural resources. So in that case, she needs to launch a 4-H club and that is Bailey. So one of the things we encouraged her with was for her to define which age group she's after. Is she trying to create awareness? Is she trying to provide involved opportunities for older youth? Which way is she headed? That's something she needs to decide as we move forward. Alyssa, on the other hand, is in California, and in an area where there's little bits of lots of different things going on. But she's on staff a little longer, but she's still very new. So still interested in STEM, science, agriculture, and encouraging career exploration. One of the things that we just talked about with her was maybe loop in or learn what their local farm bureau is doing as one of the partners. Also in Bailey's case, we encouraged her to partner or have some opportunity to talk with her local school districts, because she's so new and came in during COVID that she hasn't even had that opportunity, where there might be partnership and collaboration just waiting to be had. Do either of you want to add anything else to that?
No, I think you got everything covered.
Okay. All right, great. Any of the facilitators that were with me, you want to add anything that we talked about? All right, I think that does it for us for the moment.
Thank you. You can tell us on Monday. Okay, let me call on, is it Deb? Is it Sadie? Who was, I guess, Carol? You had two of them in that same group, is that right? Or was it Tori? Did you have, I just need to remember.
Would be me.
Okay, Tori, go ahead, Tori.
All right. So we had three areas to talk about for the idealized state of youth in the communities that were represented. One was a reimagining or reinvestment in career and technical education. Talking about programs and also physical locations where young people can just get a better understanding of what careers are out there, get trained in them. We also talked about a active, engaged, trained work mentor, volunteer cadre, more mentors and volunteers in our community to be that caring adult, to be that role model, be that mentor for young people, to encourage them, support them in choosing career pathways that they're passionate about and want to be engaged in. And then we also have one more, and that is active private sector, public sector, nonprofit sector collaborations that can provide externships or a day in the life where teachers or students go to a manufacturing plant and tour and get to manufacture for a day and see what that's like, and see if that's a career that they want to choose. So we talked a lot about those three areas. Those were the kind of three main buckets. We talked about youth-led participatory engagement. How do we help young people find their voice, so that they're the ones leading and leading the charge and changing systems. We talked about how to encourage personal interests, right? How do we support young people in exploring different personal interests, trying new things, and finding that career that they want to through that process. But I think some more tangible things too, high school graduation rates, like really looking at how do we get young people just to graduate, right? Some people have 95%, but some communities that's a lot lower. So yeah, that's kind of where we centered our conversation on those three buckets of investment in career technical education, training and engaging mentors and volunteers, and public-private sector collaborations.
Okay. Thank you, Tori. Do any of your team members have any comment they want to add to it? Okay, you're way too nice to all of us here. What I'll do is I'll call on our group, and I'll, if you don't mind, Jessica, I'll give the big picture, because Jessica really got us thinking about some bigger things. I'll frame that, and then I will call on each of you to add value to what I said, okay? We had 4 other people other than myself. Deb joined us. She's a program assistant, so I was glad to have her. Then David and Jessica and Marcella were with us in the previous round. and I'll call on them as well. So just a heads up. The big picture thing I think we came up with after some discussion, and Jessica really made a great point. Young people today, not even those who are not only young who are in school now, but even young adults who are in the workforce are less likely to be able to stay in a job for a long time, and they tend to be much more likely to go from different jobs. So the most critical thing for them is to give them the kind of skills that are transferable, that are nimble, such as life skills, things that they need to learn about being able to get along in life in terms of through their adult life, financial management, nutrition, whatnot. And there's more than that, but those are examples, as well as the skills you need on the job, irrespective of whether it's a job that requires a master's or PhD or baccalaureate, or even those are technical skills, such as we're talking about things that we talked about today, things like teamwork, critical thinking, basic math skills. I mean, things that how to really the issue of being dependable and those kinds of life skills we're talking about. And I think Jessica made the point. We need to build a youth workforce development strategy that allows them to build those kinds of skills that they can take into whatever job they may have in the future, regardless of what may be the required educational level associated with that. So I'm going to call on Jessica to see if she wants to add to that and anything else that you may have talked about. Would like to give them each a chance to weigh in on things that they would recommend that add to that, what I just said. So Jessica, let me ask you if you have anything you want to add to that.
No, I think that's really great synopsis. Our group talked a lot about how to make programming accessible and available to youth in a way that they can adapt to their own livelihoods as they continue to grow and change into adulthood. And we did, like the previous group, we talked quite a bit about youth-led initiatives and having the youth have a voice in what type of programming is developed and what type of programming they need, because even though we are all adults, sometimes we don't necessarily know best, and they know themselves better than we do. So having their voices in this discussion is really critical. And yeah, that's all I have to contribute.
Great, thank you. David, do you have anything you want to add?
Just the importance of letting people know that there are other options out there than what mom and dad's doing, or immediate family, to let them see that there's more careers out there that might better fit their personalities than what mom and dad does. So,
yeah, so really expanding their career options, right? Marcella, what would you like to add to that discussion that I know you shared with us?
Yeah, so just adding a little bit from what David said is really expanding what the opportunities are and how they evolve. Jessica hit a really big area, is that there could be possible many careers within a person's lifetime. So really right now, even as an adult, I'm like blown away on the total amount of career paths related and continuously adding to opportunities. So starting that ball rolling for them to start thinking outside what their lived experiences, what their parents' lived experiences or their networks are, for them to really drive home what their passion is. Is there a career, or is there a career possibility? Career as them putting in effort to go to do something beyond a possibility of a job. So there are small jobs that we have our kids do, working at a coffee shop where they work on their small soft skills, but then it contributes to a long-term career for them to have that interaction. So.
Thank you so much. And then the last person who joined us was Deb, and she's where the rubber meets the road as far as I'm concerned. She's a program assistant, but also a 4-H volunteer, so she can talk also about. So Deb, anything you want to add?
I think it's important to think outside the box, make it fun, where the kids want to explore, and bring activities to the kids if they can't go out and join in these activities. Like I said, I do a lot of field trips, but I also bring a lot of stuff in to the classroom or the 4-H meeting for them to have some hands-on practical experience. Life skills are most important. Okay. Most of our kids are going to go to college, hopefully, or get a trade job or something. So life skills cooking and sewing, you know, that's something that they've taken out of schools, and we need to keep on doing it.
Okay, great, great. So for all of you, is anybody else? I got everybody, right, Deb? Did I get everybody, Tori? Okay, so as you think again about for the next workshop, and you're looking about the wow, remember you're talking about goals, and some of the things you talked about were really, really good. They end up being kind of the how that you're going to start thinking about. How, if our intent is to give young people these kinds of, you know, this, in our case, our group, the skills they need to function effectively in whatever their career path is, then you say, well, how do you do that? Okay, and that's what the next we'll talk about. So I guess we can move on to the next slide. Deb, is that okay? If you see anything else, that, and let's see if I can get. So let me kind of give a little bit. So first of all, thank you for a great, great job. You know, thinking through this. I think we've set the stage for the next workshop. Let's go to, so we'll go. So as you know that now you're thinking about the wow. To get to the wow, you need the how. And so next time we'll talk about how is that going to happen? How do we make it happen? But also, where do partners come in? What are the partnerships we need to identify? The community capitals that you were introduced to, it's just a great way to look at what are the assets do we have in our community that have to do with human capital or with financial capital. You know, whatever you do is going to need money. What are the financial capital resources we might have? What are there some cultural issues we need to deal with? Do we have to recognize that there are cultural differences in the way in which we do workforce development may be important. So anyway, look at the community capitals and say, how does that help us build and identify the kinds of partnerships we need to really connect to whatever the how is. So we want to do these things, and we need people in organizations to be with us, helping make that happen, okay? So think about the information. Again, always go back to your data, try to look at what things might be giving us some ideas about the future as well. You know, what's the workforce saying in terms of skill sets and whatnot. Let me see if Deb or Tori or Carol, any of my colleagues have anything they want to add here in terms of getting ready for the next session.
Hey there. So I'll just add that, again, the homework and the questions that will really help us have a really strong session 2 on Thursday are located in the participant information center on the registration page. Again, I'll put that again in the link in the chat box, but that'll really make sure that, you know, we're all on the same page to have a really robust conversation on Thursday. So I think we've had a really strong conversation today and really set the tone for how to really talk about some of those gaps and building strong collaborative partnerships and skills development. So I'm really excited. So thanks, Bo.
The other thing that I would add also on that page of information is that we have a workshop resource that has some current websites. If some of you need to look up some demographic information, if some of you want to explore the Bureau of Labor statistics to get some information, or because we seem to have a lot of extension of 4-H colleagues on here, maybe looking at some of the resources that I listed on there. Whether you do that all for Thursday, or just make sure that you use that as a guide, because we put those together here just within the last few weeks, so we know that they're current, they're available, and they are things that might help you as you do this in your local communities, or as you think about how you want to do this locally. Carol, anything you want to add?
Let me unmute myself. Just the community capitals, they're really good, and just to take a look at them. And sometimes there's some of the 1 or 2 you may come across and kind of struggle with. Don't hesitate to reach out and ask. I think there's some really good examples. But you know, as you're putting together that and you're looking at your community capitals of saying, who do we have at the table? If there's a question on one of them, please reach out, you know, because sometimes questions come up around that. You know, I know in one of the sessions I sent in was culture, and culture, you know, can also be about what makes your county, your region unique. And there might be some different things that go on in your culture that make it more unique than maybe another. surrounding area, and that is also part of culture. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Very good, Carol. Thank you. So Tori, I'll turn it over to you because you started, and we'll. Is there any final words, wisdom you have to say to us there?
There we go. Actually, Deb, if you can go to the next slide. And so we have about 10, 15 minutes left. We can either give you guys back 10 or 15 minutes, or we can open it for Q&A. We're all going to be here. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. I thank the trainers for spending the last 6 to 8 months getting this stuff ready for everybody so that we can have a really robust conversation. So with that, I'll turn it open for Q&A. Happy to stay on the line. And then I'll see you guys on Thursday. Thanks, everybody.